all our consultations. And grant that we, having thy fear always before our eyes, and laying aside all our private interests, prejudices, and partial affections, the result of all our counsel may be to the glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of due religion and justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the Queen, the public weal, peace, and tranquility of the islands, and the uniting and knitting together of the hearts of all persons and estate within the same, in true Christian love and charity, one to another, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
This honorable house now resume its sitting. Call of the roll.
Mr. Witter, Mr. Samuda, Mr. Olness, Dr. Clark, Mr. Shaw, Dr. Chang, Mr. Montague, Ms. Grange, Mr. Henry, Mr. Bartlett, Mr. Mackenzie, Mr. Chuck, Mr. Darrell Vaz, Mr. Warmington, Mrs. Robinson, Mr. Hutchinson, Dr. Wheatley, Dr. Tufton, Mrs. Williams, Mrs. Malahoo Fort, Mr. Spencer, Mr. Green, Mr. Terry Long, Mr. Main, Mr. R. Scott, Mr. Azan, Dr. Bloomfield, Mr. Brown, Dr. Brownberg, Mr. Buchanan, Mr. Bunting, Dr. Campbell, Mr. Campbell, Mr. Clark, Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn, Miss Daly, Mr. Daly, Mrs. Dalrymple Philibert, Dr. Dunn, Mr. Fagan, Dr. Ferguson, Mr. Golding, Dr. Guy, Miss Hannah, Mr. Hales, Mrs. Holness, Mr. Hilton, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Kelly, Dr. McNeil, Miss Nita, Mr. Paulwell, Mr. Phillips, Dr. Phillips, Mr. Pickersgill, Mr. Redman, Mr. Robertson, Mr. Robinson, Mr. Stewart, Reverend Thwaites, Mr. Dwayne Vaz, Mr. Wright.
Statements by ministers. Announcements.
Laid on the table of the House today are the following: Ministry Paper number 55 of 2018 and Annual Report of the Jamaica Racing Commission for the year 2014-2015. Certified Appropriation Account, Head 3,000 for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade for the year 2015-2016, and the annual report of the committee set up to examine and recommend for approval proposed estimates for constituency projects submitted to the Constituency Development Fund Project Management Unit by respective members of Parliament for the year 2017-2018.
Bills brought from the Senate. Petitions. Papers. Reports from committees.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay on the table of the House a copy of the annual report of the committee set up to examine and recommend for approval proposed expenditures, estimates for constituency projects submitted to the Constituency Development Fund Project Management Unit by respective members of Parliament for the year 2017-2018.
Notices of motions given orally. Questions and answers to questions.
Mr. Speaker, permission to speak from a seat other than my own? Go ahead. I beg to give notice that at the expiration of 21 days, I will ask the Minister of Science, Energy and Technology the following questions.
Motions that may be made at the commencement of public business requiring notice. Motions relating to sittings of the House.
Can I ask for the committee, Mr. Speaker, of notice of motion given orally?
Those in favor? Those against? Go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice at the next meeting of the House. I will move the following motion. Be it resolved that the annual report of the committee set up to examine and recommend for proposed expenditures for constituency projects submitted to the Constituency Development Fund Project Management Unit by respective members of Parliament for the year 2017-2018, which was laid on the table of the House on the 30th day of May 2018, be approved.
Motions for leave to introduce bills. Presentation of bills without leave of the House first obtained. Public business.
Mr. Speaker, we continue the debate today on the sectoral debate today. And the speakers are the Honorable Robert Montague, Minister of Transport and Mining, and Dr. Angela Brown-Burke, Member of Parliament for St. Andrew South Western and spokesman on local government. I invite you, Mr. Speaker, I ask you to invite the Minister to make his presentation.
Minister Montague. Minister, before you proceed, I'd like to ask the House to recognize a number of visitors in the gallery, friends and families and members from departments, and to welcome them to this Parliament today, please. Please welcome our visitors. Minister, you may proceed now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, firstly, let me give thanks to the Almighty, as it is through the sacrifice of His only begotten Son that we receive the Comforter who sustains us daily. Mr. Speaker, let me also thank the Honourable Prime Minister for his continued confidence in me. And let me place on record my gratitude and appreciation to the staff of the Ministry of National Security. Their guidance has been much appreciated. I also wish to thank Senator Colonel Charles Jr., who used to be my Minister of State. To my colleagues, Dr. Horace Chang and Roddy Spencer, I wish them well as they continue working with the team at the Ministry of National Security. Mr. Speaker, to Minister Mike Henry, let me thank him for the way he ran his leg of the relay. He has left a solid foundation for me to build on. The Permanent Secretary, Dr. Alwyn Hales, and the staff at the Ministry of Transport and Mining and their related agencies and departments have all welcomed me to their area of responsibility, and together we will succeed on behalf of this nation. Let me acknowledge my personal staff and security detail. Over the last few weeks, their job has become much harder and more stressful because of information received that some from the criminal underworld wish to do me harm. Mr. Speaker, dirty criminals must never succeed in this country. We in this House must not have any divide in that mission, and all Jamaicans must unite and support Minister Chang and the security forces. To my workers, management team, delegates, taxi operators of the great constituency of Western St. Mary, I thank them, the great constituency. It is they who work to produce the 11,710 votes so that I could be here today. Some of them, Mr. Speaker, are with me today. The vast majority couldn't be here because they are at work participating in the prosperity dream. May I also thank Mrs. Cook and the parliamentary staff for their guidance and patience. Mr. Speaker, I also wish to place on record my appreciation and gratitude for your wisdom and the management of this House. Sometimes you are severely tested, but you have always reminded us of our duty to the Jamaican people. Mr. Speaker, mining contributes 2.2% to our GDP. It is the second largest foreign exchange earner and a major employer. The sector faces many challenges, as we are aware. However, opportunities abound. We intend to face these challenges and explore the opportunities. We do so, Mr. Speaker, because this government is committed to the upliftment of all Jamaicans. It is our vision, hope, and desire that all Jamaicans become prosperous. In moving people from poverty to prosperity, it is not only a campaign slogan, it is a mission statement, a roadmap, and an implementation guide. This administration, all the MPs on this side, we are about work, not words. Indeed, the PIOJ's Jamaica Survey of Living Conditions is now showing a significant reduction in poverty and therefore an increase in prosperity. We are about changing people's lives, protecting our environment and growing the economy so all Jamaicans can achieve the Jamaican dream. To this end, we believe that mining must play a critical role. However, over the years, We have not seen the benefits of mining reaching a significant number of Jamaicans, but we have seen long-term damage to our environment. In order to correct this, the ministry has embarked on a mission to balance the situation. We are starting with education and management, Mr. Speaker. To this end, we are announcing the establishment of a mining management institute in collaboration with the Excelsior College. We will be opening a mining school to train managers, supervisors, and workers in all aspects of mining management. The principles of sustainability will be paramount. The management of a mine or quarry operation requires proper record keeping, safety rules, reclamation techniques, energy efficiency, while reducing damage to the environment and protecting people's health. These will be the base of the curriculum. We intend to, over the years, lift the standards within the industry and eventually train and certify all the persons who work in the industry. Mr. Speaker, this is an exciting development that was years in the making, but we are implementing it. Work, not words. For years, the country has mined bauxite and exported it. The industry has offered many workers a fairly decent salary, but some persons, we believe, could participate in not only the industry, but the profits of the industry. Bauxite and aluminum markets worldwide are buoyant today. It will not always be so, and we therefore have to strike now while things are good. To this end, I have instructed that the government's holding in the Clarendon Alumina Partners, CAP, and the Jamaica Bauxite Mining Limited be merged into one entity. I will then seek Cabinet's permission to sell to the Jamaican people shares via the Jamaica Stock Exchange. This is an offer that the little man, the civil servant, the farmer, the workers, all Jamaicans, both here and abroad, will finally, after over 60 years, get a chance of owning a part of this industry. This is a game changer. This is epic and historic. Internal discussions have started and assistance will be sought from the Attorney General's chambers and the Development Bank of Jamaica to properly package the concept for listing on the stock exchange. This government and this minister will not only be depending on the levy or royalty to allow Jamaicans to benefit. We are moving to give ownership to Mas Isaac and his daughter, Miss Miri, and her son. Over the years, the ordinary Jamaican have seen his land, his community exploited. He has to live with the dust, the noise, and the lack of development. We are going to change that. He will now be an owner. He will make plenty money in some years, and in others none. But money or no money, he will be an owner. He will have his share certificate. She's going to buy more than you. He will attend annual general meetings. He will determine directly how the business is operated. He can pass it on to his children. Oh, what a day when Mastrula can walk into the big man them meeting and have his peace. And them have to listen to him, Mr. Speaker, because he's a shareholder, he's an owner. The truck driver, the machine operator, the shopkeeper, the pensioner will now be able to directly benefit from the bauxite industry. Mr. Speaker, CAP owns 45% of Jamalco, and JBM owns 51% of the old Kaiser operations. Mr. Speaker, other challenges we face in the industry is the slow movement in the creation or transfer of titles to the ordinary Jamaicans who have been relocated. We have approximately 2,000 titles to be transferred. This is a priority, Mr. Speaker. We cannot relocate people from their lands that have a title, transfer them to other lands, but do so and do not give them a title. We are moving to correct that. A land titling task force has been established for the industry, and I'm going to co-chair it. I'm going to drive that, Mr. Speaker. Our people must get them land paper. Discussions have already been had with the municipal corporations and the National Land Agency. We intend to clear all roadblocks and produce the titles for the ordinary Jamaican. Mr. Speaker, another priority of this minister is the reclamation of mined-out lands. Let me give fair warning to not only bauxite and alumina companies, but also to quarry operators. do the necessary and stipulated reclamations, or simply do not apply for renewal of your license. There are too many scars on our landscape, too much damage to the environment. Reclamation is a vital part of the mining industry, and I'm going to insist that respect must be given to our ancestral lands. Mr. Speaker, I am also moving towards establishing a bauxite reserve land bank. The effect of this is that lands that have reserves, we will not allow any development. Even if we have to buy these lands, they must be held for future mining. Today, we have built on lands with reserves, thus making the mineral inaccessible or increase the cost of mining as more people and buildings have to be relocated. We must think long-term and lay out a proper program that extends 20, 50 years into the future. We must not make it more difficult for our children. Mr. Speaker, as you are aware, that on April 18, 2018, the U.S. government applied sanctions that will affect the operations at the Windalco plant in Yorton. And let me pause to welcome the country manager, Mr. Igor, who is here with us today. I specifically and specially invited him to be here to hear this, because there are others within our midst, Mr. Speaker, who have forgotten that they are no longer youths, and the excuse of youthful exuberance cannot be had.
Here, here.
No, he's not youthful, no.
Exactly. We have had a series of consultations amongst our stakeholders with three principles in mind: protecting the workers' jobs, protecting our environment, and safeguarding our economy. We have kept the lines of communications open to all stakeholders as we seek to find a solution. Mr. Speaker, let me thank all the stakeholders, the workers, the owners, the management, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, the AG's chambers, the unions, suppliers and contractors, our ambassador in Washington, the Russian embassy, the US embassy, the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service, the opposition, but last but not least, the Ministry of Transport and Mining. All stakeholders for their maturity, dedication, and patriotism in this matter. This is a Jamaican matter, and we must find a solution that suits Jamaica first. Let me be very clear, Mr. Speaker. This crisis was not of our own making, but we will rise to the challenge. We will abide by the sanctions, but we will show respect and patience to our Russian friends and investors. The United States has been our best and largest trading and development partner. We value that. Equally, Jamaica is a sovereign nation and has a role to play on the world stage. We will therefore continue to lead the way in finding suitable accommodation to all the interests in this matter. Let there be no doubt that even as we work to acknowledge, accommodate, and respect all, our principled position is that we will put Jamaica first. We have established a task force comprising the Ministry of Mining, Finance, Foreign Affairs, the AG's chambers, the Jamaica Bauxite Institute, and others. This task force is looking at all options and possibilities. We are consulting with the US government, the Russian embassy, and the UC Roussel. We will update the country more fulsomely very soon. Discussions, Mr. Speaker, are at a delicate stage. We are aware of some of the challenges, but we cannot yet show our full hand. We have also moved to protect the interests of our citizens and their assets. We have revoked the mining permits around some of the lands at Kirkvine. Mr. Speaker's statement is coming soon. We seek everyone's patience as we work through the issues. We do not wish to be premature with our actions. Mr. Speaker, this is a matter that calls for maturity and patience. We have invited the opposition, and I'm surprised at some of the statements that have come forward from the spokesperson. He is well aware of all the facts. He is aware of what we are doing. We are hiding nothing from him, but to seek to gain political one-upmanship on this delicate matter is shameful. Mr. Speaker, our partnership in the St. Ann mining operations had an agreement outstanding, and as a result of this, some monies that were to be paid over to the Jamaican government has been held up. Approximately US $3 million is in question. I am pleased to announce that the agreement is now ready to be signed, and contact has been made with our partners for them to make themselves available to sign the agreement so that the funds can be released to the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service. Equally, Mr. Speaker, our partners in the Jamaica operations in Clarendon are faced with some challenges, and we will continue to exercise the necessary patience and understanding as they resolve their issues. Mr. Speaker, we are working with our Chinese partners in St. Elizabeth to ensure the implementation of their plans, as this development will be the largest single investment in our modern history. We are making sure that the regulations, laws, and standards are met while not delaying nor extending the implementation schedule. The renovation of the plant has begun. The work to improve and increase the power supply has begun. The approval process to dredge the port is far advanced. What is commendable, Mr. Speaker, is that while these upgrades and improvements take place, mining and alumina production will continue, thus ensuring that more Jamaicans are employed and a better life in the surrounding communities is sustained. Mr. Speaker, the mining industry is not only bauxite, and we have seen renewed interest in other minerals. As a matter of fact, approximately 60% of our lands now have some form of permit to explore and prospect. This is good news, as one company, majority owned by Jamaicans, has had extremely good results on their prospecting activities and are now moving to confirm their test results before starting commercial operations. We will soon start a series of consultation with quarry operators because we recognize that the cost of fuel and development funds are a major limiting factor, and we are determined to resolve this. The mining of limestone, marble, and semi-precious stones are seeing interesting developments and investments, and we encourage these interests. Today, the mining sector is buoyant and looks positive for the near future. We are now moving to consolidate our gains, retool and reorganize the industry while investing in training, technology, and affordable funding. We are ensuring that all mining operations are sustainable and environmentally friendly. Mr. Speaker, please permit me to turn to the transportation section of my portfolio. You wanted more? Transportation, Mr. Speaker, largely consists of the movement of people, cargo, and services on land, sea, or in the air. It is our responsibility to regulate and manage these vital activities. One of the most critical agencies in this area is the Maritime Authority of Jamaica. This agency is slated to play a critical role in our economic development. Jamaica is geographically located at a most opportune place on our shipping lanes. We must exploit this for the benefit of our people. To this end, we are preparing the people and the country so to do. The absence of critical legislation is one of the factors holding us back. We intend to, within the next 8 months, take some bills to Parliament, and I am confident of the support from the member of North Clarendon. The Maritime Labour Convention, the Maritime Pollution and the Ballast Water Bill. If we do not sign on to the Labour Convention and enact the laws, we will continue to deny our people opportunities. It is estimated, Mr. Speaker, that some 3,000 persons work within the maritime sector. We can double that over time once we sign the convention and enact the necessary laws. This will clear the way for shipping companies to employ more Jamaicans, not only as officers, but as crew. We'll be able to get more housekeepers, spa technicians, cooks, waiters, deckhands, oilers, and bartenders. Shipping companies will not need to recruit wholesale from other countries. They can do so once we sign the necessary agreements and enact the laws. We intend to correct all of that, sir, and along with the Caribbean Maritime University and HART NTA, begin the internationally recognized certification of people to work in the shipping industry. The first training and certification of this kind will start very soon by CMU in a Rockabessa in St. Mary. Close enough. This is a low-hanging fruit. No longer will our people be sent overseas for certification or underpaid because of the lack of it. But we estimate that some 10,000 people could be employed over the next 3 years, as shippers who are based in the United States will find it easier to recruit from a pool of English-speaking professionals who are internationally certified. Protecting our environment and sea from ship-generated waste and ballast water is vital to our development. We are committed to leading the enactment of this legislation. In addition, the MAJ is moving to strengthen its mandate of some of its functions of the authority are being carried out by the Port Authority of Jamaica. This became so as the Port Authority was a developer of the ports and had to fill the gap. The MAJ has now matured and will be assuming over time its full role as is set out by law. Mr. Speaker, this government is excited by the possibilities in bunkering. Big ships pass through our waters, and as such, the need for fuel will increase as the ships take more cargo as they set sail with less fuel, knowing that they can get We have reached an agreement, and Minister Henry had signed an MOU with a Jamaican-owned consortium to rehabilitate the Mount Pellier to solar leg of the tracks and to bring communities along the way into the product. So every train stop along the route Interestingly, I have asked the Jamaica Railway to examine the feasibility of putting back tracks in our streets in Kingston to enable trams or streetcars on the roads and to network with the JUTC and franchise holders to truly create a multimodal solution to mass transit within our capital city. Mr. Speaker, the Jamaica Civil Aviation Authority is mandated to regulate our airspace with proper management, the well-trained and dedicated staff, and our investment in technology. We can boast today of having the best regulated airspace in the region. We recently opened a $2.5 billion air traffic control tower at Sangster International Airport. Not words. And Mr. Speaker, I know that the member from Western St. Andrew will be pleased to know that a new air traffic tower is to be built at the Ian Fleming International Airport in Boscobel, St. Mary soon. Mr. Speaker, we must congratulate the management, the board and the staff of the Jamaica Civil Aviation Authority for continuing to lift Jamaica The Airports Authority of Jamaica is another vital player in our aviation sector. They have the mandate to develop and maintain airports and to promote general aviation in our country. To this end, the AAJ is far advanced with the divestment of the Normal Manley International Airport. And if all goes well, we plan to have this asset divested by the end of this calendar year. The invitation for the bid is now open, and the 8 pre-qualified bidders have been invited. Assessment and evaluation will be done in June, July, and by September, October, we should be signing off with the preferred bidder. The AAJ intends to invest and upgrade aerodromes that are currently operational. Therefore, the members from Westmoreland will be pleased to know that the Negril Aerodrome is slated for development. The member from Eastern Portland will be asked soon to come and break grounds at Ken Jones in Port Antonio. Well, he will break ground, we're not sure he will open it. In Tinson Pen and the Lionel Dempsey in Treasure Beach. Critical to the aviation industry is the maintenance of equipment, especially telecommunications equipment. Aerotel is the company mandated so to do. and we have some of the best technicians in the business. The board, management, and staff are all committed in keeping us on the cutting edge. Our investment in training of our staff, upgrading of equipment, has been paying off handsomely. Aerotel, Mr. Speaker, has a gem that is underutilized, an asset known as Cool FM.
Hear, hear.
The Cabinet had decided to divest Aerotel of Cool FM from 2010. However, because of all describable forms of delay, this has not happened yet. This has resulted in a lack of investment in the facility and a fall-off in market share. The present board has decided to invest in the entity. To allow the station to deteriorate is in no one's interest. A new transmission tower, plus new equipment and an aggressive marketing program has seen a turnaround since the years of neglect. We have seen increased market share, and we will continue along that path. Cool FM now has a board, which is a subcommittee of the Aerotel board. A general manager will be employed, and more equipment will be bought soon. More outside broadcasts will be done as we seek to increase coverage and market share. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, Cool FM is covering this presentation today. So I want the member from North Clarendon to keep quiet. It is a vital and profitable concern that will be divested. Not a broken down ramshackle entity. Works, Mr. Speaker, not words. Mr. Speaker, security in the aviation industry is very important, and the Port Security Corps has always been vital in the role they play. As the designated body to provide security at our ports of entry, new focus is being placed on this entity. To this end, a new board will be appointed with a charge and mandate to overhaul the entity, invest into new equipment and training. A new section will be created to leverage our experience and expertise and seek to provide through the tender process security services to other government entities. We cannot sit and wait on government subventions. We have to earn our own. Security is big business, and a paradigm shift is coming for this entity. Mr. Speaker, the Island Traffic Authority is a very important regulator as it issues drivers' certificates, certificates of competence, and certificates of roadworthiness of most of the vehicles. The passage of the new Road Traffic Act will open the door for this agency to fully move to assist in reducing road fatalities by regulating and enforcing more aggressively our motor vehicle laws. To achieve this, we have started to repair and upgrade the offices island-wide. Our staff have been trained and retrained, and technology introduced to make the workflow better. Motorists will note that they are now getting a machine-printed fitness certificate. Our database is being upgraded and protected, and new alliances are being formed with the police to help to remove illegal driver's license from our roads. The driver's license application process will be automated soon. The point system is being computerized to ascertain when you exceed the points allowed under the law, and thereafter, PICA, the TAJ, the Transport Authority, NLA, banks, insurance companies, and the police will be notified that your license is suspended. Soon, for a fitness certificate to be printed, your vehicles must be present on the compound within a special geofenced area in order for the machine to sense the vehicle. If it is not there, the machine will not issue a fitness certificate. Let me warn motorists, Mr. Speaker. Let me warn motorists who try to bribe motor vehicle examiners. I am asking them to stop it. Do not attempt to bribe the motor vehicle examiners. We have been hearing stories, and let me publicly say, Mr. Speaker, that we have started some undercover sting operations with the police. Yes. These are being done at depots that people are making allegations about. Nobody, as of now, can say they were not warned. except if they're not listening. Definitely, sir. Mr. Speaker, the JUTC is the government transport company that does mass movement of our people in the KMTR and St. Catherine and Clarendon. The company has never made a profit and depends on government subvention and fare revenue to keep going. The company is losing money, lots of money. But that's the nature of public transport. The fare revenues can be increased if we stem the losses, fraud, and theft and leakages and introduce new revenue streams. I wish to thank the board, the management, but mostly the staff for keeping the entity going. Mr. Speaker, for that minority who is determined to carry down the company for their own personal gain, your time is up. The union and the workers have been working with management to improve the overall situation at the company. But some persons are determined in their efforts to leave the company, and this minister is determined to help them. The JUTC carries approximately 58 million passengers per year, and we are moving to leverage that critical mass to generate more revenues. We already have a contract for on-bus advertising. We have just signed a deal to provide free Wi-Fi service on our buses to our passengers. People can now browse as they travel. They will have free access to the internet. The revenues earned from advertising will assist us. We are also hopeful that the free Wi-Fi will attract more persons to travel on our buses. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I have today to give to every member of this House a JUTC smart card and encourage them to ride the JUTC buses. Weekend. Hope Road. From right at Campion come down to Jamaica House. We have a problem, Mr. Speaker. We have a problem with 85 of our buses that are leaking, as there are two different materials that meet at the front and some sections on the roof, thus creating space for water to seep through. Mr. Speaker, 40 of these buses have already been repaired, and we are on track to repair the rest over the next 3 months or so. The repairs are expensive, and we are also reinforcing the basic structure, and we are doing it from cash flow. Mr. Speaker, we have sought and are awaiting NCC approval for a private entity to provide us with a new lubricant filter system that will require only 1 oil change per year. Currently, we do up to 6. They will be responsible for retrofitting and the supply of oil, saving approximately 30% on our present lubricant bill. Mr. Speaker, we'll also be soon implementing a vehicle tracking and maintenance monitoring system. This will tell us where the bus is at any time, what speed it's being driven at, and the fuel consumption. Today, when the bus leaves the depot, we have no sight of it for the next 8 hours. The experiment that was done revealed that our buses sometimes idle for up to 40% of the 8 hours. There was one instance where a bus was left in a depot for 4 hours. This not only wastes fuel, but wears the parts and causes overheating. The monitoring system will send an alarm when a preset boundary is exceeded, whether it is speeding, idling, or routine maintenance. This system, by reducing idling, can save approximately $125 million per year. The new system, Mr. Speaker, will also allow us to electronically count our riders and automatically balance the fare returns. We should save and see an increase in fare revenues by approximately $300 million per year. Mr. Speaker, we have begun to install CCTV cameras on our buses. We have done 20 so far. This has allowed our workers to be protected, as when they are accused of poor behavior, the camera is an independent witness. We have seen workers confronted and abused. We have seen theft of fares. We have seen idlers. And Mr. Speaker, we have even seen a person attempting to tape over one of the cameras. An electronic time and attendance system will be introduced, saving on paper and money. We are also using, Mr. Speaker, nitrogen in our tires. This helps to keep them cooler, thus allowing the tire to last longer, again saving us money. Works, Mr. Speaker, not words. We intend to introduce more ridership loyalty programs to increase ridership on our buses. And I invite the member from Northwest Manchester to make good use of the smart card that he will get. He go to Manchester. Mr. Speaker, we are about to extend 2 of our routes to allow them to drive onto our ports so that the dangerous practice of people crossing the road by Tinsipen will cease. We are about to start an experiment using LNG in 5 of our buses so that we can properly make an assessment if LNG is the way to go. You have yours? You get another one. Use it. Mr. Speaker, it is our view that with these initiatives, it is only $1,000. Say thank God. What about the poor household helper? You are well paid and we give you $1,000. You should thank us. You see how Dr. Phillips look grateful? You don't get yours. Search Mr. Bunting, him against you so much that he will take away your car. Mr. Speaker, it is our view that these initiatives and more will see us stem the flow of red ink while still offering a safe and effective mass transit system. To keep the JUTC going, Mr. Speaker, they need tires. And the ultimate tire company is doing so by supplying the best quality retread tires in the Caribbean. We are moving now to expand this company and to offer retread tires to the entire Jamaican market. To this end, we are now seeking agents and distributors in order to increase our presence in the marketplace. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the board, the management and the staff of the Montego Bay Metro for their continued service and patience. I am aware that they are facing some challenges. I intend to meet with the union and management shortly, and I remain hopeful that we can craft a lasting solution. Mr. Speaker, the Transport Authority is vested with the mandate to regulate the transport sector. This is a well-managed public body. However, the time for change is now. We intend to lay out a program, and after a 6-month period of consultation and fine-tuning, then move quickly to implementing. The Transport Authority issues public passenger and commercial licenses. We currently issue 44,000 such licenses per year. Mr. Speaker, it is proposed to complete the discussion with the Island Traffic Authority to have a Transport Authority inspector seated at the depots to certify and issue commercial license. Today, the system to issue a commercial license is cumbersome and time-consuming. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, you are required to buy a private license plate before you can buy a commercial license plate. That does not make any sense. Once the examiner certifies that your vehicle is commercial, you will get your commercial license right there at the depot, and you can proceed to buy the. Let me repeat. Once the examiner certifies your vehicle as commercial, you can buy the green plate right there. The green plate. We are also exploring to employ more compliance officers on a commission basis. Mr. Speaker, No one can deny that the public passenger vehicle system needs overhauling. That is what we will be doing, but we will consult with our stakeholders before we implement our proposals. What I will be outlining today are a set of proposals to be discussed, adjusted, amended, and agreed to before implementation. So we will be engaging our partners to hear from them before any action is taken. Mr. Speaker, the current practice is to have a technocrat in Kingston to determine how many taxis and buses must be on a route or to determine what is a route.
Here, here.
They claim that many routes cannot take any more taxis or buses because enough are on it. Yet you see people standing and waiting for hours and many illegal taxis operating because they cannot get a road license.
Mr. Speaker, I ask for the Minister's time to be extended by 50 minutes to allow him to complete his presentation.
Those in favor? Those against? Minister Montague, you have 15 minutes to complete your presentation.
Mr. Speaker, let me thank you and my colleagues for the extension of time, sir. The Transport Authority, in many ways, Mr. Speaker, and by practice, is invariably making persons to operate illegally when they sincerely want to earn an honest living. And some of these proposals, Mr. Speaker, will be, before I tell, let me just say this, Mr. Speaker, that this government that I am a part of believes in the power of the market and believes that we must allow the market to determine the saturation point. To this end, we want to open all routes in Jamaica and allow all who wish to be licensed to be licensed.
Here, here.
2, once you are awarded a route, you must keep it. And if you wish to change it, you can apply for a change of route with the necessary fees. 3, people should be allowed to design and craft their own routes and then apply for it to be registered. License application will no longer need to go to the board. We are proposing renewal of licenses to be in the owner's birth month, not in April of every year for everybody. Mr. Speaker, it put too much pressure on the staff and on the workers to deal with 44,000 people 1 month.
So we say, prosperity. Prosperity for all.
Mr. Speaker, proposal number 6. All taxis must be fitted with a stipulated vehicle locator that must always be on. Number 7. Every driver must be in possession of a badge. And if he or she accumulates more than the amount of points, their badge will be suspended. And we are going to be synchronizing our system with that of the Island Traffic Authority. After proof of payment for their fines, a suspended badge will be restored. Driving without a current badge, the driver and the owner of the vehicle will be penalized. Proposal number 8. We want to establish a city taxi system that allows taxis to operate within city limits. Number 9. All drivers must submit to an annual customer service driver education training annually. And these will be administered in partnership with the associations. Number 10. The Transport Authority will be developing a free taxi locator and safety application for smartphone holders. Drivers and owners must update our database within 2 weeks of a change of address, change of color vehicle, or any relevant changes Our database must be current, and the drivers and owners in the industry have a responsibility to update the database if they make changes. Number 12. We believe that if the Island Traffic Authority certifies a vehicle, then that vehicle can be issued with a road license. Number 13. No driver, listen carefully. The member from North Clarendon, listen carefully. No driver will get a badge if he or she is a rapist, child molester, gunman, thief. Or if they are convicted. 14. Number 14. I am looking right before me. Number 14. Anyone, Mr. Speaker, anyone caught running and operating an illegal taxi, these vehicles will be seized. It will be returned when proof is brought that you have applied for a road license. If it is seized again, it will not be returned because it will be easy to get license. 15, we want to issue 3-year permits with annual renewal. This will help with funding so that the fleets can be upgraded. Proposal number 16, we want to increase the limits on route taxes to 40 kilometers. Mr. Speaker, we believe that these proposals must form the basis of a period of discussion with our stakeholders to get their input so that we can finally improve the system and make this into an industry and not into a hustle. Let us state that we have before us 2 applications for rideshare permits, Uber-type operations. The taxi industry is going to be changed one way or the other. It is now time that the stakeholders see this as a business, a career path, and not as a little hustling. Mr. Speaker, after the consultations, we intend to implement the agreed recommendations and amend what laws need to be amended. We are not going forward to implement anything without adequate discussion with our stakeholders in the industry. Mr. Speaker, we know we don't have all the answers, but we are putting a set of proposals on the table to form the basis of our discussion with our stakeholders. A new day is dawning on transport and mining, Mr. Speaker. Exciting days are ahead. We are building a strong foundation, exploring opportunities for the benefit of all. Let us not forget that we work for the people of Jamaica, all the people of Jamaica. This government will continue to work diligently and honestly so that Jamaica may, under God, increase in beauty, fellowship, and prosperity. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much, sir.
Mr. Speaker, I ask you to invite the Member of Parliament for Southwest St. Andrew, the opposition spokesperson and local government to make a presentation.
Dr. Burke.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Permission to speak from a seat other than my own. Mr. Speaker?
Yes, ma'am, you may go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I just did. Mr. Speaker, I rise on this occasion to make my first contribution as Member of Parliament for Southwest St. Andrew. Let me start by paying tribute is that so? Okay. Let me start by paying tribute to my new family in Southwest St. Andrew, including my 3 councillors, Audrey, Carl, and Kelly, who are here, to the members of the constituency executive, our community leaders, political workers, and residents. I thank them for their warm welcome, guidance, and support. To those who have stood with me while I served in the Norman Gardens Division from 1998 to 2017, including Jackie, Jessica, Howard, Kadeen, Gail, Kim, Raquel, Mag, Michael, and many others. While in the Norman Gardens Division, our primary focus was on education, community development, improving physical infrastructure, the development of new recreational spaces, and special outreach activities for our seniors. Thank you. Special thanks to the member from East Kingston and Port Royal and that constituency family, and my family across the island, members of the People's National Party, who have given me an opportunity to grow as an advocate and a voice for community development. To my personal staff, Shanti, Kavira, Sapphire, Joby, my security details, who all take the anxiety and hassle out of the hard work that we do every day. I want to also thank my colleague mayors and councillors, as well as those in this house, who are helping me learn my new role, both as Member of Parliament and as spokesperson for local government. Thanks also to my family, and in particular my sons, for their understanding, their support, and their personal sacrifice on this journey. A special thanks also to those who over the years have helped me grow a thick skin and who remind me every day that democracy is not a spectator sport. Mr. Speaker, I've always had a deep admiration and respect for the Most Honorable Portia Simpson Miller, who has left some large shoes that are not easily filled. There is no doubt that during her 40-year tenure as Member of Parliament for Southwest St. Andrew, she gave the highest quality representation. Her commitment and love for the people of Southwest St. Andrew is evident in the projects and initiatives undertaken to improve the standard of living for all. Mr. Speaker, I also pay tribute to her for her insightful vision and subsequent action in ensuring improvements in the infrastructure and housing stock in the constituency. Housing solutions such as Palm Grove, Delacree Park Phases 2 and 3, Caribbean Palms, Oak Glades, Majestic Gardens. These are just a few of the major milestones made in the development of communities through education by my predecessor. Indeed, it is on this solid foundation built by the distinguished fellow of the University of the West Indies that I stand as a new Member of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure how many in this House would have heard the story about an anthropologist who had finished studying the habits and customs of an African tribe. The children had always been fascinated by him, probably because he had a different color. On the day he was leaving, he decided to show his appreciation. So he bought lots of candies and sweets, put them in a beautifully decorated basket, and placed it under a tree. He then called the children together, drew a line in the ground, and explained that they should wait behind the line, and when he said go, they should rush over to the basket, and the first person to arrive would win all the candies. When he said go, all the children got up, joined hands, and ran together towards the basket. Once they got there, they simply shared candy with each other, making sure that each and everyone got a share of the sweets. The anthropologist, of course, was stunned. So he asked them why they went together, especially as the winner would have been able to share all the sweets. A young girl answered simply, "How can one of us be happy if all the others are sad?" That, Mr. Speaker, is Ubuntu. Ubuntu is an ancient concept that our African ancestors espoused, and from which we have gotten idioms such as standing on the shoulders of those who have gone before. No man is an island. We are because you are, or I am because we are. I believe that we must devise a campaign based on Ubuntu that is waged in our homes, in our schools, in our churches, in our businesses, and in our communities. A campaign where we are all on board, across party lines. A campaign focused on strengthening our understanding of community and interdependence. As a leader, I am committed to leading by example, and I ask my colleagues in the House to join me as we encourage all Jamaicans to work together in rescuing Jamaica, instilling values of goodness, kindness, compassion, mutual respect, and a shared concept of our humanity. You see, Mr. Speaker, participation is essential for human development, because what our constituents, our colleagues, our neighbors, our friends and families have to offer in terms of experiences, knowledge, and ideas is integral to our individual and collective growth. For us as elected leaders, we must take it even further, making participatory leadership, public accountability, and transparency the centerpiece of Jamaica's growth and development. It is this spirit of Ubuntu, Mr. Speaker, that is at the forefront of my approach in Southwest St. Andrew. It is also in keeping with the values of democracy, social justice, and equal opportunity for which the People's National Party has always stood. It is what is demanded of us if we are to realize the vision often articulated by the opposition leader, Dr. Peter Phillips, of that Jamaica that works for all and not just a few. In Southwest St. Andrew, we began this journey with consultations across the 3 divisions, providing an opportunity for free and open discussion with individuals from different demographics and across the communities. As a result of those discussions, today I stand firmly with the residents in my commitment to improve the safety and security of those who live, work, and do business in Southwest St. Andrew, to also enhance the living conditions, including new housing opportunities, and thirdly, to continue efforts in achieving quality education for all, as well as increase opportunities for skills training, employment possibilities, and entrepreneurial development, all of which will ultimately lead to the overall social, cultural, and economic advancement of the people of Southwest St. Andrew. This, Mr. Speaker, is the collective vision of the ambitious people, full of pride, who are committed to ensuring a vision of a model constituency that becomes our reality. Mr. Speaker, at the same time, we are aware, in terms of safety and security, that we belong to the St. Andrew South Police Division, which ranks the highest in the island in homicides, with 70 murders, 59 shootings, and 56 robberies between January and May 19th, all recording an increase over the last year. 2018, yes. This is untenable. So, Mr. Speaker, my deep concern about the zones of special operations, ZOZO, and the states of emergencies as ineffective means of dealing with the issue of crime stems in part from the reality that I face. The children of Southwest St. Andrew and elsewhere cannot hope to survive, much less become productive citizens, if we continue at this pace with no apparent sense of urgency. As a child of downtown Kingston myself, I cannot sit and betray them by being silent on this issue. Nor can I simply join the chorus. More needs to be done to protect our people, and it is our responsibility. I signed up for duty, so it is also my responsibility. At the same time, Mr. Speaker, the government cannot escape its lead role on designing and implementing a workable plan to make citizens safer in our own homes and on the streets of our country. After all, national security is a primary role of the state. My tasks as Member of Parliament, I know, must include a partnership with all stakeholders and state agencies as we place greater emphasis on parenting, improving life skills, building a sense of community with respect for each other and for the sanctity of life. That is Ubuntu in governance. Mr. Speaker, as I have been engaging community members, the need for a youth agenda has been clearly an articulated priority, and we have started that journey. We have also supported and we will continue to support law-abiding citizens, community groups as we strengthen the voices calling for an end to violence in our communities. I have also been fortunate enough to inherit some projects, such as the Portia Simpson Miller Square expansion, the Foreshore Estates housing development, as well as the expansion of the Kingston Wharves and the establishment of a global logistic facility, all conceptualized and designed by the previous administration. But of course, I am also pleased that the current administration has followed through on these needed developments. It's a good start, but only a start. I recognize that civic engagement is a continuous effort in community building and one that must be accompanied by support from the state for basic services. The mandate I have been given by the people of Southwest St. Andrew is to continuously engage state agencies for development opportunities and programs, and I dare not fail them. Again, that's Ubuntu. I turn now, Mr. Speaker, to a stinking, sore topic for the residents of Greenwich Town. Yes. And it's the proximity of the Greenwich Primary School, the Caribbean Palms Housing Scheme, Boat Island, and the wider Greenwich community to a sewage station, not a sewage plant where treatment takes place, but instead a station where raw sewage is taken from across the greater Kingston metropolitan area. It is carried across our streets, dripping fecal matter all the way to the sewage station. Then, Mr. Speaker, to make matters worse, when it gets to that station, it empties its contents into a hole, and the entire community has to hold its breath. Our students and teachers are nauseated and learning disrupted. Our community members have a hard time transitioning to prepare for the evening's meal. Apart from the obviously unpleasant odor, this defies the most basic of hygiene standards of a modern society. Since I've started discussions with NWC, the officers have been nothing but professional and willing to engage the community at every turn. However, their position is that relocation is not possible, nor is it desirable. Desirable for whom? The residents of Greenwich Town? I don't think so. I serve notice, Mr. Speaker, that I am fervently committed to engaging the NWC on this matter with full community support, guided by technical expertise, because I am determined not to allow that station to continue where it is. Mr. Speaker, I now turn to the issue of local government. The portfolio with which I have been tasked by the Leader of Opposition, Dr. Peter Phillips. Let me also thank him for the opportunity to engage my passion for local governance while leveraging my 40-plus years of community activism. I thank you. I started really young. The journey is one that I know is an important part of his vision of a Jamaica that works for all and not just for few, where we put people at the center of all that we do. So what exactly is local government, Mr. Speaker? It is largely agreed that local government is about supplying goods and services, as well as determining and satisfying public needs. It is therefore seen as effective or even necessary to the extent that those needs are satisfied and according to the efficiency of providing those goods and services. Of course, the issue becomes far more complex if there is uncertainty or ignorance around these services, or if there is a lack of consensus around those needs. Over the years, local government has been seen as a poor cousin to central government and councillors as assistants to members of parliament. I start with these comments because I believe that together, we here in Parliament need to ensure that these issues are clear, such that performance can be more easily monitored and improvements achieved. Many, including those of us as local government practitioners, are tired about hearing of reform. When will it end? I understand the frustration. We have come a far way with the passing of the 3 strategic laws in February 2016, and we now need to increase public education around the provisions while we take steps to close the gap. And let me remind us that Rex Nettleford said to us that we have to keep alive the discussion and consultation on a couple of issues, and I quote, the clear and distinct lines of authority between local government and central government, the fair returns to local government authorities of taxes earned locally, and the collaboration between parish councils for more effective service delivery to citizens. So I serve notice that those are things that we need to ensure that we deal with. Mr. Speaker, over the years, determining meaningful decentralization, which we have come to acknowledge as important for local government, has been a challenging one. It is my view that we all have a responsibility to work together to ensure good governance and success. The task now is to equip local government with the financial and administrative resources and a regulatory framework that promotes partnership and fosters a people-centered approach. It is this understanding of good governance that has created a broad consensus around the participation of Jamaicans in the decisions that affect them and in monitoring the commitments of municipal corporations. The Local Governance Act 2016 sought to provide a regulatory framework. However, I think more needs to be done in terms of public education to assist that youth, that woman, that man in their community who is interested in becoming involved. We still aren't there yet. I want to also challenge the municipal corporations to ramp up their participatory mechanisms, including, as is stipulated now by law, that annual meeting to examine the plans and the performance of the municipal corporation. Let's change the culture from one of merely providing service to one of responding to the needs of the people and solving the issues that confront our people. In 1958, Mr. Speaker, The new mayor of Kingston at the time, Mrs. Iris King, made a commitment to a brighter and a cleaner city. As she described her vision, she could just as easily been talking about any municipality in Jamaica in 2018. 60 years later, our citizens are demanding that brighter and cleaner Jamaica. Communities with gardens, parks, and playgrounds. Communities where our roads are well lit at nights. Communities that are not overrun by garbage and with the stench and with dogs rummaging through every pile. Resolving these issues is at the heart of any modern local government system. And 2018 is as good a time as any to close the gap and make a brighter and cleaner city our reality. Mr. Speaker, I talk to residents every day in their communities, and I'm always intrigued by the animated discussion about their number one priority, street lights or potable water in their pipes. We all know that water is life, but street lights can save lives too. We are told, Mr. Speaker, that there are about 200 active gangs operating in Jamaica, and that between January 1 and May 19th this year, we have seen 542 murders, 466 shootings, and 155 rapes. These statistics tell a story about communities unable to be policed for various reasons, including the lack of streetlights. I know the residents of Grange Hill, Mount Salem, West Kingston, Maxwell Avenue, Kidd Lane, Boyens Road, Fitzgerald Avenue, Seaview, Newlands, Herring Peace, Sunlight Street, across the road there, and so many other areas fully understand the danger posed by missing streetlights. They face that fear every morning as they send or take their children out to catch the bus, or when they return from work in the evening. The few steps from the bus stop or the main road to their homes seem like a 5K walk, with fear pumping in their chest, as they wonder if they are going to be the next person to be robbed, beaten, raped, or killed. I don't think I can do justice to relaying their concerns about the absence of these streetlights. But I do know that they deserve better from their government. They deserve better from us here in this House who represent them and should have their interests at the front and center of our thoughts as we discuss the nation's business. Mr. Speaker, we should not have to wait on the declaration of Azozo to deal with the issues of streetlights in any community. None. And sewage disposal. These are and garbage collection. These are basic services that we need. I challenge the Minister of Local Government, now that he actually has a seat at the big table, and not like the last time when the ministry was just a department. I challenge him to speak up, put people first, use the data that we have to push for streetlight repairs and new installations so that our people can step out into the light. Mr. Speaker, despite all we've been told about the central line for complaints in the minister's office and the attendance of JPSCO officers at council meetings, there are still many persons who are not certain how to report and monitor non-functioning streetlights. Don't forget that we have had cases of lights being fixed in the morning and going back out within 24 hours. In addition, the reports to councils only gave global numbers, and most persons are really interested in knowing if the light at the top of the road or the one in the square is working. Mr. Speaker, it is generally assumed that at any given time, at least 25% of our streetlights are not working. This surely then could be used as a basis for a more accurate billing where JPS is concerned. And so JPS and the corporations could be incentivized to solve the people's problem. This is a service for which the municipal corporations have responsibility, but they have no authority. It is taking far too long, I think, for us to see the results of the data collected from last summer's audit driving the repairs and the new installations of street lights. You know, we are pleased to hear that 36,000 plus lamps have been installed between June 2017 and January 2018. The idea of 105,000 lamps being installed in 3 years is great, but how is it going to be monitored and reported and tracked? I can't guarantee, Mr. Speaker, that we will be able to sleep with our windows and doors open. That is outside of my portfolio. But I do hope that my comments and suggestions will add to our communities being safer. In the name of transparency and to help the public monitor what's happening, when will the minister provide a detailed list of the 36,445 new lamps, with details such as the communities and the streets where the new installations have been done and the date that it was done? Could the minister be kind enough to tell us how many of these brand new lamps are on main roads and how many of them are on our parochial roads? What percentage of our communities are still in darkness because of the absence of lights or non-functioning lights? Can the minister confirm the actual number of street lamps in the country, both working and non-working? And can he say how many more will we need to have our communities properly lit? And my final point in terms of street lighting, Mr. Speaker. Most persons know that the payment for street lights comes from property taxes. The minister in this year's presentation talked about a $3.7 billion arrears that he inherited from the PNP administration. He also told us that the arrears now stand at $6 billion. And so I asked my friend who told me that they are good at simple arithmetic to help me with the arithmetic. And what they said to me is $3.7 billion, the arrears inherited over 5 years, works out to about $740,000 per year in arrears. Million in a year. 6 billion minus the 3.7 billion would now leave a 2.3 billion, which will be the arrears incurred by the present administration in 2 years. So if we divide that by 2, we are talking about $1.15 billion of arrears per year. It sounds to me, therefore, Mr. Speaker, that the minister could take a lesson or two from the member from Southwest Clarendon about how to manage arrears. About how to manage arrears. The numbers. I speak only from the numbers, Mr. Speaker. Nothing else. Mr. Speaker, I want to look at keeping our communities clean, which is a basic requirement of any society. And if we are to be honest, we would say that we haven't done a good job of it over the years. Again, here is a service for collaboration between central and local government, but where the role of each needs to be properly defined to benefit the public. And I'm sure persons will be interested in it because it affects not just their health, but also their pockets. Before going further, Mr. Speaker, allow me to place on record my own appreciation for the efforts of the current Executive Director, Mr. Audley Gordon, as well as the previous 2 Executive Directors, Ms. Jennifer Edwards and Mrs. Joan Gordon-Webley. I believe that they have each brought something valuable to the table and have tried to improve the quality of service to the Jamaican people, each understanding that a clean city is a healthy city that can play a significant role in saving our environment, in particular for our children and our grandchildren.
member's time for speaking has expired. House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I ask for the member's time to be extended by 15 minutes to allow her to complete her presentation.
Motion is that the member's time be extended by 15 minutes. 15 minutes to allow her to complete her presentation. Those in favor? Those against? Ayes have it.
Let me thank my colleagues for graciously extending the time for me to complete the presentation. Mr. Speaker, I believe that what we need to do is to reset and recalibrate a new normal in terms of the cleanliness of our communities and our town centers. Facilities for garbage disposal, regularity of garbage collection, public education, and the rules and penalties that apply. In the 2017-2018 presentation made before this Honourable House, the Minister of Local Government stated that additional collection units to the Solid Waste Management Authority fleet would have increased its capacity to collect more residential waste and reduce the operational pressure on the existing units by about 50%, I think he said. The expectation then was that there would have been a marked improvement in the collection of the 720 tons of solid waste throughout the island. I guess the minister must have been as surprised as I was in December 2017 that so many of our town centers and communities were overflowing with garbage. What is clear is that new units are not enough for effective management. I now hear the minister promising an additional 25 vehicles to complement the 43 trucks now owned by the authority. And I too am hoping that those promises will be kept, although we know what the Jamaicans saying about promises being kept, being a comfort. And we also have the painful experience of promises coming with strings that were not obviously attached when the promises were first made. I am, however, counting on the minister's understanding and commitment to local government to make the difference. But the questions that immediately come to mind would be, what is the optimum number of trucks needed for improved services? And what is the acceptable benchmark for effective management? I am reliably informed that less than 200 reliable trucks dedicated to residential garbage collection will not make the difference that we are looking for. And this is even compounded if the units are not involved, or are also involved rather in commercial waste and not just dedicated to residential collection. If truth be told, compactors and tipping trucks is a good start. But we also need to acknowledge that the main challenge to an effective and efficient solid waste management system is the underfunding of the Solid Waste Management Authority. In addition to reliable trucks and proper maintenance, we also need reliable heavy equipment working on our disposal sites, and to make sure that persons who are working for us are properly compensated and compensated on time. Consistent and on-time payment for our truck drivers and equipment rental is not optional. It is an essential element of a people-centered approach to local governments. We cannot expect small, struggling contractors to carry the major brunt of financing the operations of an authority such as that. Absolutely. We must also provide our citizens with a collection schedule they can depend on, one that will facilitate good habits in the disposal of their waste. Mr. Speaker, the privatization of the National Solid Waste Management Authority, we have heard a little bit about that. And we are told that the report on the feasibility study is being completed and that is to drive the details of the request for proposal. In the meantime, I want to say a couple of things as it relates to that. At the end of the day, the people of Jamaica must benefit from an improved garbage collection across all communities, having the level of service that is required to reduce health risks while maintaining acceptable standards. Secondly, all services and capacity within the Solid Waste Management Authority should not automatically be privatized. And the long-standing issues between defining the role of the councils in this matter also need to be resolved as well. Public education also cannot begin after all the issues have been decided, which is how government normally does public education. Engagement with the public at this time is critical and should not be confused with grand statements on the matter. Before I close on solid waste, Mr. Speaker, let me acknowledge the steps taken by the Minister to address a long-standing injustice as it relates to the ex gratia payments to these retired workers at solid waste. I also note the Minister's announcement that these wages will begin being paid as of May 1, 2018. Minister, kudos to you. I am hoping, though, that these increased payments will now allow these sweepers and sidemen to earn a livable wage in a prosperous society. Let me reiterate, Mr. Speaker, the issues of street lights, garbage collection, and the management of solid waste are among those things that cannot await a PNP's return to government, although we know that is not very far off. No, they constitute an urgent requirement of a modern society. Really a bare minimum. The Minister has an obligation to assist in making this a reality, because these are areas that require the intervention of the Minister. The municipal corporation by themselves cannot achieve this. Citizens, I know, play a critical role as well, and they must also be engaged as important stakeholders. I'd like to hear more from our municipal corporations, being more vocal about these issues that affect their residents. I'd like to hear our community-based organizations being more vigilant about the standards in their community, including their own emphasis on continued public education. Today, I challenge all of us, the Minister, the local authorities, and all Jamaicans, to make a commitment to a cleaner and brighter country, starting, of course, with our homes and our communities, so that our communities and our town centers can be clean, safe spaces with greater citizen participation and with a sense of community ownership. Mr. Speaker, I now move to the issues relating to parks, community gardens, and public spaces. Often when we think of parks and gardens, we think of fun and games, beautification, and we ignore the role they have in defining how public spaces are used and how members of a community relate to each other and learn to live with one another. In truth, they are essential for a healthy development. We therefore have a responsibility to ensure that these aspects are part of every community that we build. In fact, we have a responsibility to begin creating parks, green spaces, and playgrounds in every community. The trees and flowers, in addition to providing shade and lowering temperature in urban areas, also filter pollutants and dust from the air, and they act to reduce soil erosion and prevent it from getting into our storm and our stormwater drains. And if these are not good enough reasons, then we just need to remind persons that research also indicates that they help to improve property values and they are likely to yield greater social cohesion. Too many of our parks have been allowed to languish, and we know the genesis of this. The local authorities have never fully recovered from the stripping away of their responsibilities in the 1980s. Back then, with the introduction of the parks and market companies, parish councils were stripped of almost all their responsibilities, except cemeteries and infirmaries. Even after parks and markets were returned to the councils, the attendant budget line item was not provided, and it has been difficult for many councils to maintain these needed community parks. This is made even more difficult with the tension that usually exists between development and environmental concerns. It is time to right that wrong. And I'm hoping, Mr. Speaker, that Minister Mackenzie will see that as part of his duty, especially since it was another member from West Kingston who was responsible for the mutilation of the local government system, the decimation of the local government system. Yeah? Yeah, as well, absolutely. Mr. Speaker, many would remember just a week or so ago when the Minister of Local Government boasted of all he was able to do in just 2 short years. In speaking to capital expenditure, he noted that the administration had increased, and I quote, 6-fold the level of investment in the improvement of our parochial road network. Since the financial year 2013-2014, he said, the annual provision for repairs was $19 million, and this year, he said, was $110 million. The increased spending to which he referred, Mr. Speaker, is true, and in fact, it is expected that major capital expenditure should come through the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development. But there's a part that he neglected to say, and that is that the success of the reform program implemented by the PNP administration to make the Jamaican economy more competitive has been bearing significant fruit from which the current government is benefiting. In particular, our extensive tax reforms have been generating improved tax revenues, tens of billions of dollars over previous levels, thereby enabling higher levels of expenditure on social programs and on capital projects, while still keeping within the fiscal rules. Our reform to the economy are also attracting high levels of investment and have returned the economy to consistent positive growth, which is further driving up revenues. Mr. Speaker, the economic reform program has been working. So when this government speaks of being able to spend more on various activities than was possible in the earlier years of the reform program, they need to recognize the foundation on which they stand. They are reaping where they did not sow. And there's no problem with that. It is often the cycle of government, but at least give credit where it's due. Mr. Speaker, I want to talk a little bit about the Parochial Revenue Fund. As we look at the performance of the local authorities in relation to the collection of property taxes, which forms a greater part of the Parochial Revenue Fund, I believe that we should not forget the error and the resulting confusion at the start of the fiscal year about the amount of property taxes that individuals had to pay. Because this, in part, has affected the total collection from the various councils. I also believe, Mr. Speaker, that it is time for us to set a realistic target for property taxes, so that it has to be more than set at 60%. Mr. Speaker, finally, I'd like to, if you could just bear with me, mention 2 issues that I believe are important that we need to talk about. So I want to welcome the Minister's plans about the expansion and rehabilitation of markets. Very good. But as I listen to him, my heart weeps for the injustice of what is being meted out to vendors at Constant Spring Market. I believe that it is unacceptable and inhumane to ask legal vendors who have been paying their market fees to relocate at the drop of a hat without even the courtesy of a proper decision and discussion with the Kingston and St. Andrew Corporation. Something has to be done about that. It is not too late. As they said to me, this is not about their livelihood. This is about their life. It is not too late. the KCAC and the minister can in fact do something about that. Mr. Speaker, the St. Thomas Municipal Corporation. Let me say just how dismayed I was in November 2016 to learn that councils in the St. Thomas Parish Council Municipal Corporation could not resolve their issues and without breaching the rules that they themselves are sworn to uphold. As it turns out, Mr. Speaker, Councillor Hubert Williams and his team have been vindicated. Their initial objection was that Mr. Dean Jones was not eligible to sit and he was not eligible to run as a councillor.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, before I ask for extension or not, this standing order provides 45 minutes for ministers and 30 minutes for opposition spokesperson. For this period, there's an agreement that will extend the ministers by 15 minutes and the opposition by 15 minutes, making it 45 minutes and an hour. At this time, I'm going to ask that we extend the courtesy to the member, extend the time by 3 minutes for it to conclude.
Those in favor?
Thank you very much, colleagues. You need to, yeah.
Those in favor? Those against? Ayes have it. Dr. Brownberg.
Thank you very much, colleagues. I am in fact wrapping up, so thanks for that. Mr. Speaker, I use the opportunity to thank Councillors Hubert Williams, Marsha Francis, Rohan Bryan, Ludlow Mattison, and Edwin Marr for their courage and insistence. In the words of Chinua Achebe, one of the truest tests of integrity is a blunt refusal to be compromised. I wanted, in wrapping up, Mr. Speaker, to just say a few words about the Portia Simpson Miller Square expansion. Wonderful project, and we know what is happening there. But what it has shown is that the public consultation process is extremely flawed. We still have individuals who are going to be directly affected, who have no idea how their business will be affected. The public hearing that was held so far away from the community that it guaranteed residents would not have turned up. And I believe that we have to look at how we do that because it cannot continue. Cannot continue. And then, Mr. Speaker, let me say this. When our activities affect the daily life and livelihood of others, we have an obligation to go beyond the ticking of the boxes on the public consultation checklist. We must ensure all stakeholders are identified and given sufficient time and information to mitigate the effects on them. Mr. Speaker, in the areas in which local government can do things more effective than central government, we must demand more locally delivered services rather than waiting for central government. In putting people first for growth and development, we must turn our attention to collaborating across ministries and agencies to respond to the needs of our citizens. The age-old tension and power struggle between local and central government is something that needs to be resolved. The reform spanned many administrations, and it has received bipartisan support. We have come this far together. Our task now is to make sure that we make what we have placed in the laws become practice of local government, especially as it relates to broader civic engagement. A modern local governance system requires that we engage our communities as major stakeholders in those issues that directly affect them. Local government will not continue to be the poor cousin of local government if we make it central to people's lives and their means of living. Thank you very much.
House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, it's not intended to do any further business today. So I ask the House be adjourned until next Tuesday, June 5th at 2 p.m.
The motion is that the House be adjourned until next Tuesday, June 5 at 2 p.m. Those in favor? Those against? Ayes have it.
Yes.
This House now stands adjourned.
Especially for the firewalls.
Listen,